of York and North Yorkshire for 2024.
And people may have heard of you before, but I suppose a few things. You're quite well known in Pateley Bridge. You used to own the oldest sweet shop, and you've stood for Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, haven't you? Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
My background is I was a police officer for over 20 years with an exemplary service. I was also a fraud investigator for a bank travelling around the north of England. I've been a businessman, most probably quite well known for running the oldest sweet shop in the world, and that's Guinness World Records, in Pateley Bridge in Nidderdale, which is part of the Harrogate district. I've also been a bit of a community champion. I've chaired the Chamber of Trade on 3 occasions for the Nidderdale area. I've also been chair of the Bloom Group, working with the youngest in the schools to the churches of the Dales to businesses. So quite an extensive background, but I also stood in 2021 to be independent as Police, Fire, Crime Commissioner for North Yorkshire. There were 2 elections held in that year. On both occasions I came third. On the first one I garnered about just under 23,000 votes, and on the second election again I came third, and I increased the percentage of my vote on a lower turnout. I've stood for these things because I've always served the community and tried to do things which improve people's lives, whether it be from the young to the very eldest in society.
North Yorkshire then is going through quite a period of change. And we've had the borough councils, we've got really only in the council 2 councils, the York City Council and one kind of big super council, if you like. And part of that change will be the election of a mayor. I think a lot of people don't really understand what the mayoral role is about. Can you just sort of explain a little bit about what the key principles of a county mayor is? I think a lot of people know like a borough mayor, which is more of a ceremonial role, but this is very much not a ceremonial role.
This will be a huge change for North Yorkshire, and certainly for the people. It will affect people, and it's very important therefore that people start to hopefully find out about what the role is and what it involves, because it will affect so many different areas of people's lives. It's you can compare it to something like Sadiq Khan in London, Andy Burnham, the Tracy Babbin in West Yorkshire. This is the kind of role, and it's going to be involving transport, housing, skills for people, training, absolutely massive, huge role and large budget provided by government, but also to be added to by working with private industry and business.
And how does it change the accountability of if you like, local government? Because obviously we've got each area or each district as an MP, and we've just had this big change where we've got our elected councillors. How does a mayor work with the council and with MPs?
This is a role which is to work with people, and that's what it should be about. That's why I believe it's so important to be independent, so you can work with everybody, whatever the political background or not political background. And it's a case of working with people to try and deliver, but you've also got a lot of powers because you've got certain compulsory purchase powers, you've got certain use of brownfield sites, you've got providing affordable housing, to do with transport, integrating transport, franchising bus service. It's a huge role with large budgets, so it needs, hopefully, somebody who can actually deliver, not just talk. There's got to be talking, but a lot of it about is deliver, so people see that they're in effect getting the devolution, which is what this is described as, a devolution.
And you touched on there about it not being a political role. When Police, Fire and Crime Commissioners first came about, they were talked about being a non-political role, and then all the main parties put candidates forward. And I think it's fair to say there's lots of discussion whether that's the right route for those roles. Why should this one be independent?
I believe that independence gives people confidence that they're going to be heard, that there's some accountability, that person will listen to them because they're not going to be swayed by a political party, by a particular body. And that's the important part of this role. It should be somebody with a certain amount of personality, a certain amount of charisma, hopefully, somebody who's got the business expertise, but somebody who is going to be accountable to the people, because at the end of the day you're serving people, whatever the role is, and you're getting paid for doing that. And I want to be the person who's paid and I will give such value for money to what I deliver on the ground as the Mayor of York and North Yorkshire.
And at the moment then we're seeing quite a few independent candidates like Selby and Ainsty. You know, there's 3 independent candidates that are standing for election there. Do you think there's a change in people's views to independent candidates? Where do you think, if there is a change, where do you think that change has come from?
I'm really hoping there is starting to be change, because otherwise we're going to continue in the same cycle we have done for so long, which is you vote Conservative, you vote Labour, you vote Labour, you vote Conservative, and the main parties all the time. But look, how are they delivering? Things are getting worse for everybody in society, whether it be law and order, whether it be to do with jobs, whether it be to do with the society and the community which we're losing. Somebody has to draw this back together, and I believe only an independent can do that. I think the movement people are starting to recognise this, because we're all seeing the abuse of authority, the abuse of powers by our political leaders and the parties, and certainly that's been heightened over the last few years. So yes, the time for change, and I'm hoping that people start to think, let's give an independent candidate a chance, because we've done it with the police fire crime commission. It's been hijacked, which was supposed to be somebody representing the people, and instead we've ended up with somebody representing a political party and listening to the political party's line on things. And there needs to be change, time for change. If people do vote the same, they'll just get more of the same.
And one of the big changes then is that the police fire and crime commissioner will be no more, and that will be a role that you would take on board, isn't it? What would be your approach with that? Because some of these, there's an existing structure there. Do you know how you would tackle that area? Because it's one of the biggest areas, I guess, of what the mayor would do.
Yeah, I mean, clearly I stood to be police fire crime commissioner elected as an independent. I had a vision, I had a plan which was deliverable. Well, obviously I wasn't able to do that, and from what I've seen, unfortunately, we have had since 2012 a Conservative police crime commissioner initially, who then became a police fire crime commissioner. The services themselves, unfortunately, they can only go by the direction they're given. They're being failed. I feel sorry for the firefighters, I feel sorry for the police officers, because they haven't got that lead. I don't blame the chief constable, I don't blame the chief fire officer, because they are looking over the shoulder at somebody who is basically a politician. And so I see that going forward, this can change. The role of mayor takes on the police fire crime commissioner. Whilst I wouldn't be personally the police fire crime commissioner, I would make sure that the right independent person was in post to carry out that role. Clearly I would offer guidance and support, but I think it's important to give the chief fire officer and the chief constable the power which they've got operationally to get on with the job, deliver, but with the support and guidance that is there. And there needs to be change, clearly, certainly in relation to the recent HMI CFRS reports. They're failing, and they will fail because they are following a political direction rather than an independent overall view which is going to benefit everybody.
And talking about campaigning then, one of the things, obviously this is a county-wide mayor, so it goes from Skipton to Scarborough, doesn't it? So it's a massive area. So the main parties already have a structure in place. What's your kind of approach to, you need to talk to Scarborough people, Skipton people, you're often in Harrogate where we are now. How are you going to garner that support over such a large geographical area?
Yeah, a huge area with this massive network. We've got over 800,000 population. We've got 46,000 plus businesses. So it's a massive area. And for an independent like myself who doesn't have that party machine, it's very, very difficult. But if I was always to take the message, you're not going to do it, then you'd never actually try and do it. I've funded my police fire crime commissioner campaigns myself. At the moment I'm funding things that I'm doing going forward, but I'm hoping that people will get on board and try and support, because the political parties use huge resources and huge amounts of party machinery and money to get their candidate elected. It is a David versus Goliath for me as an independent. I'm hoping people recognise what I'm trying to do and I'm doing it for the right reasons, get behind me, and then as I proved previously with the police by Crankfisher, to get nearly 23,000 votes in a large area and beat basically the third main party by coming third myself behind Labour and the Conservatives. It can be done. We've just got a little step further to go this time, but I've got experience from my previous campaigns, and I will do what is necessary. And the difference is, where others say it can't be done, I say it can be done, and I'm aiming to be elected. I'm not aiming to come third or second. I need to be elected to make those changes that are so necessary for this society, which at the moment is collapsing, failing around us.
And one of the big pictures, if you like, for why mayors should be put in place is it gives a voice in Westminster. Is there a particular voice in Westminster that you feel North Yorkshire needs?
I think we need to clearly bang the drum for Yorkshire, and that is part of this role. It is actually to be the champion for it, and also for the people that you're serving. The MPs, I think, once they get into the Westminster bubble, disappear into it, and therefore they don't necessarily serve the people. The difference with what I would be doing is actually banging the drum, but also going to the Treasury, knocking on the door, negotiating hard, getting good settlements, good deals to provide the money, to provide free bus services for younger people between about the ages of 15, 18, provide more clubs, whether they be gardening clubs, drama clubs, boxing clubs, youth club type situations, to get the younger people away from the computers a little bit, although they can do that as well at these events and these clubs that are created. We can have gaming clubs, but to draw them so they realise that actually they don't need to hang around, they don't need to be creating antisocial behaviour for communities. So it's so vital that somebody is fighting all the time for Yorkshire and to bring more and more to Yorkshire, because we're sending all our money from Yorkshire as business owners, as ratepayers, and the majority of it goes to Westminster before they dole a little bit back to us. We want to keep more of that in Yorkshire so we can spend it on making this the fantastic place it is to live, if you're fortunate enough to live here, to work, if you're fortunate enough to work here, or to come and visit it, because everyone knows how beautiful it is, whether it be, you know, from Skipton, as you said, to Scarborough, whatever part of North Yorkshire. What a fantastic place, lovely, clean air, etc. But we can do more on the environment, because through the mayoral office there's going to be budgets available to actually deliver on changing the way that we recycle, the way that we build affordable homes, insulated homes. We can do so much, and working with business, particularly working with business, that's where the mayor and the team, and that's the important thing, it's not just me, I will have a team around me, because like anybody, I don't know the answers, and I don't have the answers for everything. What I don't have, I'll have somebody to turn to get that advice. But I've always been good at not spending other people's money. I've been good at spending my own where I need to do on the right things, but I will treat every penny that is coming into that mayoral office as though it is coming out of my own pocket, so I'll be careful how I spend it.
And one thing you hear people say quite a lot, not just with the mayoral vote generally, is that there's no point in voting because it doesn't make any difference to what they're bothered about. What would you say to people to encourage them to engage? I suppose not just with the mayoral votes, but if they were voting in Selby and Ainstey, for instance, or when we have a general election. Yeah,
very much so. I'm a great believer that we need to keep voting. It can be easy to be put off and think, well, my vote don't make any difference, or it never changes anything. Well, unfortunately, we've got to have this new approach, which is actually, I'm going to try and do something, I'm going to try and make a difference. I've been supporting all the independent candidates in Selby and Ainstey for the election this week, because I believe that we need this change from the two-party system. There's no difference between the two main parties, and at a local level, all we're seeing is that a lot of talking, a lot of arguing. You need to talk, you need to discuss, debate things and be open about things, but it's about delivering, and delivering what the people want, because we seem to be actually, and certainly at a local level, delivering things which are decided by a few, and quite often lots of money spent, for example, on consultants advising, and they aren't local consultancies, businesses who are benefiting, quite often from, yet again, down in the south of England. Let's bring things back to Yorkshire, let's deliver on the ground in Yorkshire, and use businesses in Yorkshire wherever possible to do that. We'll be the strongest part of the whole UK if we do it properly, and that can be achieved within the timescale that a mayor has.